What's going on, guys? I've got a bit of a banger for you guys today. We've got a 3 headphone gauntlet challenge, comparison, whatever you want to call it, between 3 of the most beloved, I would say, respected, acclaimed headphones under $300 in the audiophile space. I'm currently on kind of an audiophile journey, just kind of starting out. I just started getting into open back headphones about a year ago or so, and it has led me down a path that will not end because there's no perfect headphone. And especially when you don't want to spend too much money, it's hard to find one that does everything correctly. But these three try to do that at very decent prices, especially the 6XX. So for those who don't know, here on the left we have the Sennheiser HD550. This came out earlier this year. Here we have the Sennheiser Massdrop HD6XX, which came out, I believe, in 2016 or so, which was kind of a revamp of the legendary HD600. And then we have the Aune AR5000, which is kind of a special headphone because it was Aune's first headphone, I think, period. And they seem to do a really good job, so I wanted to check them out because they're so highly regarded by a lot of the audiophile community. And they definitely are special because if you can see, they have like a angled driver, which is in the front of the ear cup, which is so interesting. And it's supposed to give you more of like a spatialized soundstage more in front of you. If you wanted too long didn't watch, I like all 3 of these. I think all 3 of them are fantastic headphones. They all sound really good. For the most part, they're all comfortable, although that'll be subjective. The MSRPs are kind of similar. I guess this HD550 retails for $350, but you could get it right now for like $280. The Aune AR5000 right now is around $290. I think it retails for $300, and then the HD6XX frequently goes on sale to like $180, but I think the retail is $220 in the US at least. So basically, I can't really choose which one I think is the best, but I'm going to try to do that. And we're going to get started with build quality and comfort. So the HD550 is an all plastic design. It's a traditional Sennheiser HD500 series headphone, and it's not really changing much. It does have less clamp force than the 560S, and it has a different headband, which I actually don't like. The HD560S had a better headband in my opinion. It had like a little indent on the top, and then it had like foam nuggets on the sides. This one just has a leatherette foam, and there is cushioning, but you can really kind of feel the pressure on the top of your head. I actually got a Capra Audio strap, which attaches to the yokes here, and they actually do a much better job with comfort, at least on the headband area. The build quality is good, even though it's plastic. It's just so lightweight. It's like, I think 237 grams or something. I really haven't tried, I don't think, any other headphone that's been this lightweight. So it kind of just floats on the top of your head. The problem is that you could feel the top. And I personally have an issue with the comfort on these just because the ear cups to me are so shallow. And disclaimer, I feel like apparently I have the biggest ears in the world because I seem to have these types of problems with a lot of ear cups, but the driver on the HD550 just really touches. It's the left one. I don't know if it's because the pads are slightly different. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little bit wrinkled on the left one, and it seems like maybe it's a little more shallow, so maybe that's the issue. But the driver is touching my ear, and it's quite annoying, and it does cause a little bit of pain after extended periods. I didn't have the same issue with the 560S or the 505, so I'm wondering if it has something to do with the different type of materials that they used in the driver itself. But overall, I think people are going to find these really comfortable. The clamp force is very light. You can barely feel the clamp force really. And it's just such a lightweight headset that I think it'll fit most people who aren't as picky as me. Then we get to the HD6XX, which has plenty of clamp force, let me say. I do find them very comfortable. The clamp force is a little bit much. It's gotten better already. I've only used it for, I think, a couple weeks now. and it has gotten better. And I think you can actually pull on this metal headband part and kind of tailor it to get a little bit less clamp force. That worries me a little bit, but I've seen a lot of other people do it. So you might be able to do that and reduce the clamp force a little bit, but it is a little bit much, but it's still comfortable overall, because especially because these pads are just real nice. I prefer the pads on the 6XX than I do on the 550s. I feel like they're deeper, they feel a little bit better, and I really don't find my ears touching the inner part of the driver. Plus the inner part has like a little foam screen. If your ear does kiss the driver, you're at least touching the foam, so it shouldn't be a problem if you have really big ears. I also prefer the top of the headband on the HD6XX than I do on the 550s. This is more like the 560S, which I think is just better. It has like the little indent on the top, and it's quite comfortable overall. Just the clamp force is too much. And I actually like the build quality more on the 6XX than I do on the 550s. I know the 550s, even though they're all plastic, they are built well and they should last a while. Maybe it's because of the metal piece here and just some of the materials used. It just feels like, a more expensive headphone than the 550, but it isn't. Also totally subjective, but I feel like the 6XX looks better than the 550. I don't particularly like the 550's look. I think the 560S and the 505 look better than this colorway, but the 6XX is a pretty sexy looking headphone, especially with that exposed driver here on the outside. So overall, the comfort is quite good. I feel like you have good space inside the ear cups, but the clamp force might be too much for some people, especially if you're sensitive to that, or you have a bigger head. I think you might have a little bit of an issue with this one. Then we have the AR5000, which is the most comfortable out of all these, in my opinion. You're just getting a lot of space in the ear cups if you have bigger ears. The pads are nice. They're pretty plush. They're angled a little bit. And even though you don't get much space here at the front, your ears don't feel it because you have a lot more space here in the back, since the ear pad and the driver is angled. You also have a suspension strap here, so you feel like absolutely no pressure on the top of your head, which is awesome. I feel like Sennheiser should probably go to some of these suspension strap style designs. Beyerdynamic also, they just seem very reluctant to do so, but I think it would actually benefit a lot of their headphones. But anyway, as for the build quality, I've seen a lot of reports on the AR5000 where this plastic piece breaks, and I've seen a lot of issues. I think Aune said that it happened more with some of their earlier units, so I can't speak on that, but I just want to say it's a known issue. So it's something to take into account, especially for a $300 headphone. I don't think that should ever happen, but it seems like they've been doing well to at least replace them if you're under warranty and you have that issue. But overall, the build quality is okay. It's okay. It's a decently built headphone. I think the materials are decent, especially the ear cup materials, this leather strap, and this top piece, which is metal. Those are good, but this plastic doesn't inspire confidence. And even if I do like this, I don't know if you can hear that, but you kind of hear the plastic creaking a little bit. So that's not my favorite. It doesn't feel cheap, but it doesn't necessarily feel premium. It looks premium. I think the looks are awesome, especially with this like rose gold, rose pink behind the grill, plus just like the branding. I think it looks nice and it looks premium, but I wouldn't necessarily say they feel premium. But they do feel good overall. My only real problem with the comfort on these would be the weight might be a little bit too much. I think they weigh like 350 grams, which is a lot more than these. But if you're not doing a 1-to-1 comparison or a 1-to-2 comparison, you might not even notice the weight, and especially with the suspension strap. Overall, it's very comfortable. I actually find it more comfortable than these two. As for how easy they are to drive, the HD6XX is obviously the hardest to drive. I think it's like 300 ohms. The HD550 is 150 ohms, and the Aune is, I think it might be 28 ohms, which is crazy. It gets insanely loud. Using the Kiwi Ears Allegro Pro On this one, I'm under 50% plugged into my iPhone 16 Pro. On the HD550, I probably have to go like 25 to 30% higher than the Aune AR5000. And then the HD6XX, I have to get to like 80% volume probably to get to the same type of listening volume level. So if you have the HD6XX, I would actually recommend getting an amp. I think they scale really well with amps, so I would do that. But for these two, I think you'd be good with a little DAC amp, like the Kiwi's Allegro Pro. I'll have an Amazon affiliate link if you guys want to check this out. It's been a really nice addition to my audiophile collection, which is basically one headphone in this little thing. Getting into sound quality, this is how I'm kind of going to put it. If I could only use one word to describe each of these headphones, I would say neutral, natural, and brilliant. Let me explain what that means. Basically, the HD550 is, in my opinion, the most accurate out of all these. I feel like everything just sounds exactly like it's supposed to. There really isn't much coloration in any specific frequency. The highs are present, but they're not overbearing. The mid-range is perfectly just flat, don't really have any other colorations in that area. And then when you get to the bass, it actually has surprising punch, surprising presence. I actually find the bass on the HD550 to be the best out of all these, which is kind of surprising because the AR5000 technically reads as having more bass and being a warmer sounding headphone, but I actually find the 550 to be a little bit warmer sounding, at least to my ears. And I think it's because the bass just seems to have a little bit more presence. And it's surprising because I tried the 505, which reads as having slightly less bass than the HD550, but I actually find it to be kind of a big jump up in bass quality and quantity on the 550. But it really is just a very neutral, accurate representation of all of the frequencies. Vocals in particular just sound correct. Just everything sounds really good. Basically every genre I listen to sounds good. Does it sound amazing? Maybe not at times, but there's something to be said about your music sounding exactly what it's supposed to sound like. And I think the HD550 does a really good job in that aspect. When you get to the HD6XX, this one is so different than both of these, just because the mid-range is, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, some people say it's special, and I would tend to agree, just because there's like a richness, like a sweetness to the music where it feels like you're in the recording room, you're in the recording studio with the vocalist. So for vocal-centric music, I mean, this is it. Like, this is better than these two, and probably the best you could do, unless you go up to an HD600. But it seems like the tuning is very similar with the 600, 650, and 6XX. The problem with the 6XX is that it really doesn't have a lot of bass. I wouldn't say it's bass light, because it is a warm sound signature, because it has a little bit more emphasis in the lower mid-range, getting from the bass into the mid-range. So it does have a little bit of a warmer, maybe thicker sound signature than something like the 550, even the AR5000 as well. And the treble is a little bit tamed, but the detail retrieval in terms of like little small nuances in songs, you can still hear that on the HD6XX, but you do feel like you're missing a little bit of the high-end sparkle, a little bit of the pop, a little bit of the air that you get with the HD550 and the AR5000. But if you listen to a lot of music that's just very vocal-centric and very instrument-centric, for instance, like Bon Iver's recent album, Sable Fable, or any of his albums really, like this headphone just does it so well, because it has that little bit of warmth, and Justin Vernon's voice just lends itself so well to the sound signature, plus the instruments that he plays in his music. So I would say it's like a use case thing. Hip hop, rap, EDM sounds okay on this, but you do miss a little bit of the sub bass that you get with these other two. Then we get to the AR5000, which is such an interesting headphone because it sounds very similar to the 550, honestly, in terms of having like a warm / analytical type of sound signature. What's interesting about this one is that vocals kind of have like a brilliance to them. Like every voice that I've heard from a vocalist comes with like a little bit more of a bite, or a little bit more of, not necessarily a sharpness, but maybe like an edginess to their voice, which makes music sound just kind of slightly different than you're used to, but it's not bad. It's good. It's really good. It actually gives you a different type of presentation to music that maybe you haven't heard before. But at the same time, everything sounds natural as well. From vocals to instruments, like I said, it sounds very similar to the 550 in terms of being accurate, but it just has a little bit more of a sparkle to kind of everything going on in a specific mix. The bass is quite good. It feels a little bit sloppier than the HD550, but it's still a good bass overall, especially for an open back. I think you're getting more bass emphasis than you usually get with any other open back. And then when you get to the soundstage, I think that's where the AR5000 could really shine, because like I said earlier, the HD6XX has a narrow soundstage to where it feels like you're in the room with the vocalist, like in the recording studio while he's recording it. The HD550 kind of feels like it's around you, like it's in the room. But then the Aune AR5000, it's kind of staging like the vocalist is exactly in the room at a specific area. So it just kind of stages wider than all of these, which is actually really beneficial for gaming, which I'll get into a little bit. I play a lot of Battlefield 6 right now, and a lot of single player, story driven narrative games. For gaming overall, the HD6XX is just not, it's not great. It's quite poor for FPS games. You can get away with it, but it's a little bit difficult to pinpoint footsteps. For single player story games, it's actually not terrible because it has a little bit of a warmer sound signature, so it can be quite immersive, but there's really just no openness if you're playing an open world game, for instance. The HD550 and the AR5000 are definitely better for gaming. The AR5000 just does a better job in FPS games than the HD550, but it is close. The HD550 has really good imaging performance, so playing Battlefield 6, I did not struggle with either of these. They were almost similar, but the AR5000 just seems to have like a slight edge in terms of picking out specific audio cues like footsteps and other little details in games. For single player story games, it's so close. They honestly sound really similar for that use case in particular, where you're getting just a little bit of a wider stage with the AR5000, but dialogue sounds a little bit clearer, a little bit more natural on the HD550. But I really just love both of them for gaming, and I really like them for music as well. So what would I go with out of these three? It is so hard to decide, to be honest with you. I think the HD6XX, I don't think it's showing its age, to be honest, even though I believe it came out in 2016, which would make it almost 10 years already. 9 years old, almost 10 years. I don't think it's showing its age. I think it still has a specific use case that can be beneficial. I think it's fantastic for music listening overall, especially vocal-centric music. I think it's awesome. And especially if you could do a little bit of EQ to add a little bit more bass and just a little bit more treble in the higher frequencies, I think this could be just kind of a be-all, end-all. But I don't love it for gaming, but like I said, if you can EQ some of those other frequencies, I think it could be great. Just be wary of the clamp force. Then we get to the HD550, which I think is going to be what most people prefer. If they were to try these, I think the HD550 would actually be the one that most people choose as the best one, just because everything sounds natural. Everything sounds accurate and everything sounds good. Like nothing sounds bad on this headphone. No music genre sounds bad. Every video game I played sounded good. It was good for FPS gaming as well. Honestly, overall, it's an awesome headphone. I just have the problem where this little driver is touching my ear and it's rubbing up against my ear. So maybe if I could get thicker pads, this could be the one, but it's personal preference and it's gonna come up to you. But I think this is the one that most people would choose out of these. But don't discount the AR5000 because I really do think it's an awesome pair of headphones that gives music a kind of different spin, just a little bit extra sparkle on everything that you listen to, but at the same time being a warm sound signature still, and not being sibilant at all, not being too sparkly at all. It just sounds great for almost everything that I listen to, and given how good the detail retrieval is with the AR5000, little specific nuances in songs that you could pick up on that you really don't get with a lot of other headphones, and doing so at this price with the comfort is quite commendable from Aune, especially given that it was their first headphone, I believe. So that is awesome. But if you checked out any of these headphones, let me know what you guys think. I think they're all awesome, and I think everyone would be happy with basically any of these. But let me know in the comments below which one you guys like more, and if you want me to check out a specific headphone in the future. See you guys in the next one.